Hello and welcome to Truckers World for another video. Hope you're all doing well out there. I'm okay myself. As previously mentioned, I've been told from one of the managers that they are phasing out all agency drivers where I'm at. So I'm a little bit in no man's land at the minute, but I'm taking it one step at a time, 1 week at a time, and of course I'll let you know everything that goes on. So this video today is a review or a good insight into working as a Class 2 driver for a big courier firm. Now, there's lots of courier firms out there. You'll know the names. This one is a very well-known name. You may know the name from my videos, but there it is. First of all, this concerns only the hub I'm working for at the minute, where I'm at. Okay, other hubs work differently. They have different processes and slightly different ways where HGV drivers might work. But so this is only concerning the one up north where I'm working at. Okay, so to work for one of these guys, whether it's agency or full time, you will need an assessment first. So you come in with one of the managers, and basically you drive around for about half an hour, reverse into a bay, etc, etc. Nothing difficult, nothing too hard. It's just basically showing them that you can drive a truck and you're qualified. Okay, believe it or not, people do come into these jobs and they don't even have a license, so that's why they do it. In some places, the other hub that I did work at, I've worked at 2 hubs, they might make you do a little bit of a questionnaire. Again, most of it's fairly simple. There is a section that's quite difficult, but don't worry too much, you know. To be honest, it's not really relevant for what you're going to be doing, and they will help you through certain questions, so don't worry. Right, so when I go in Monday to Friday, and then maybe rotating Monday to Saturday, you will make, well, I would say you probably as a full-time will have to work at least one day every other weekend. That's how it'll work. Okay, it depends on your shift patterns. I think they've got Tuesday to Sunday, Monday to Saturday, and then the following week will be Monday to Friday, etc, etc. You usually have to work at least one day a week, weekend. So, when I go in the morning, you give your card in, your driver card in. You then get your keys in the canteen. You all wait in the canteen, give them your keys, told where you're going to. You might have to sign a little bit of paperwork, show you've got a certain key. You might have collections. The main area of this job is delivering to sub-depots. That's the main thing. That's your bread and butter. Everything else comes after. So, okay, so you know where you're going, your sub-depots, and this where it's not difficult, but depending where you're going, it can be a bit frustrating. You go into these sub-depots, and you know, half these guys, couriers, managers alike there, are okay. The other half are almost desperados, and I don't want to say it like that, but they're very, you know, they're so in tune with the job they're doing. They don't care about you as a HGV driver. So you'll go there sometimes and there'll be cars blocking all over the show, and you're trying to get in, they've got the boots open, walking around everywhere. It can be a bit difficult in certain areas. Not impossible, you know, but that's what you get. And again, the people who work there, they half the time, they don't want the load. They just don't. They'd rather you drive back. You know, it's part of their job, but they don't want it. It almost feels like when you turn up to places, you know, you're not giving them a welcome. How are you doing? You okay? Some will. But, you know, a few of them will look at you like, I can only explain if you're a football referee walking out in a field and 2 teams looking at you. You know, they're not exactly shaking your hand, how you doing, all this kind of stuff. So, you know, it's not hostile, but there's different stories I've got, which obviously I can share at a later time. That sub-depots are difficult at times, you know. Okay, but there you go. Right, so you're back in and you'll unload your wagon. Now, normally in the morning, certainly in the week, it'll get loaded for you. And what you're carrying is pallets, and they're full, about 5 foot tall, give or take, with parcels. And obviously they're held together by plastic collars. Okay, so tail lift work, pallet work, pump truck work, you'll pull it off, you'll take it to where they want it, drop it, go back, so on and so forth till it's empty. More often than not then, you may well pick up some empties for them. So that's all these collars all stacked up, or pallets, and again, you'll be pulling it onto the wagon, loading your wagon. You come back to the depot. This is, you know, on an average day. It might work differently on certain days, which I'll explain. And then you unload your wagon. Then you'll have 1 or 2 things. You might go out and do some collections. Okay, Sometimes you do collections after you've dropped off at your sub-depot. It just depends what round you want. But yeah, you might do some collections. Then you'll go back to your sub-depot at a later time, midday, when all the couriers have gone, or most of them have gone, and you'll pick up what they call their returns. A couple of returns, maybe 4 or 5 pallets, maybe a couple of empties, and again, load them yourself on the tail lift. And then once you do that, you're coming back here and you're unloading it again at this side sub-depot. So there's a lot of manual labour. It's not really difficult, but there is a lot of pump truck work, pulling and pushing, unloading your wagons, etc. There is a lot of that. Okay, so once you've done that, then it's filling out your paperwork, etc. You do your van checks in the morning, you do some when you're finished as well. You know, overall, it's not too bad. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. It's not too bad. There are worse jobs out there and there are better jobs out there. The sub-depots you will get used to, and you won't get a lot of trouble with a lot of them, but you might get the odd bother here and there, trying to back in, letting people know they're in the way. You know, if you can only take maybe a couple of empties, you know, in the morning because you've got collections to do straight after, you might have a few frowns there, stuff like that. You know, you've just got to tell them as it is and just deal with it. And that's when I go to these depots, I don't make small talk really. I just unload. You know, some are quite good. They will be all right with you, some of them, and some of them just a bit cold with you. And I just unload. Where do you want this? Yeah, that's fine. And I just deal with it, and that's it. Okay. But for one example, one driver went to one depot and he found that there was somebody in the way, so we couldn't reverse in a certain way, the best way. We drive in and then you reverse. They were telling him, well, can you not turn round and reverse in the other side? And he was basically arguing, saying it was too dangerous. And he was right. He's probably right. They refused to move the vehicle. Next thing you know, there's a bit of a standoff. Fortunately, managers at this depot are quite good. They do support you. They're not out to get you, which is good, and they will help you when needed. So he did get backing from them, and it was fine. But that's just one example of how you might have a bit of a confrontation. Not too much, nothing like that usually. I've not had anything as such like that. But there's been times where they might want you to take more back with you, and I can say, well, look, you know, I've got collections after this, I can't do that. That's that kind of thing. And of course, when you come full at times, you know, they moan and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. As far as the hours go, it's generally an 8-hour day. However, you know, standard weeks, you know, you can stretch it. It's up to you. You can stretch it a little bit with your breaks, etc. There's no reason why you can't stretch it to 9 hours. Some days you probably could stretch it till 10. So there is an option to maybe stretch your work if you want to do more hours. The wage is generally okay, probably about average for Class 2 drivers. It is paid hourly, okay? Just to let you know that, so you're not on salary. The trucks are mostly in good order. DAF trucks, not too bad. You know, they're mostly safe. Not a lot wrong with them, in all honesty. So that's good that way. You know, and like I say, it's not a bad job. It's not too bad for me. If I was to give it a score out of 10, I would probably give it a 7. Purely because there is a lot of pushing and pulling. Which some drivers might get a little bit tired of, and the sub-depots as well. Although, I don't want to put anybody off by this, you know, most of the time they're okay, it's just dealing with them as and when you do deal with them, okay? It's you know, overall it's not too bad. Today, you know, for example, on my sub-delivery depot, there was one driver that came before me, he was full, I assume. I came in with maybe about 4 pallets, and you could barely get in. Couriers are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. They don't care about you. And one of the guys just said, you're right, you just have to back up here, literally where the gate is, and just unload there, you know, in a big fat puddle. That's the kind of thing you've just got to deal with. But like I say, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. It's not too bad. There is opportunities apparently to move up to Class 1, depending which depot you're at. This one, they don't do a lot of Class 1 apart from shunting. But yes, I would say most of the time it's a fairly easy job. And yeah, certainly as a first job anyway for Class 2 drivers. They do take on new drivers as well. That's something that they do. Probably because of maybe the wage, 8-hour wage, doesn't pay that much, etc. But yeah, I think it's quite good for first drivers. You know, some days you might find yourself, you know, on an 8-hour day probably doing as much pulling, unloading and loading than you do driving. You know, on other days there is, you know, more driving when you do your collections. The collections as well are mostly okay. The odd dodgy one here and there, but they are generally easy to find. And the good thing about a lot of these depots, certainly the one I'm at anyway, is that the other drivers will always help you out when it comes to collections. If you've not been around before, they'll tell you, you know, where to do, where to turn, where to go, even which order to do your collections, which I think is a really good thing. You know, the lads here, fantastic, absolutely brilliant, 10 out of 10 for them. So yeah, there you go. There's my review for quite a famous, I would say, or a big name. I won't say famous, I'll say a big name Courier business as a HGV Class 2. 7 out of 10, new driver, well worth a go. And if you're close, if you live close to a big hub, I definitely think it's worth certainly 6 months to a year. Give it a go, see if you like it. A lot of people here stay here because it's generally easy work, but it depends obviously on what you like. So thank you for watching. Very grateful for all the subscribers, really am hoping to build that up, and there's plenty more videos coming, so keep tuned, okay? Keep on trucking.